So fine, let us start with TestNG and I'm sorry, TestNG. So we are going to learn about it. What is TestNG? How it helps us? What can we do with it? Okay, let's talk about that first. Right. Look, when you make a framework in Selenium, okay, the general structure is that you have got test cases. Okay, right. And suppose this is your test case 1, test case 2, test case 3, test case 4, and all these test cases have to be executed in a certain order, one after another, or you would like to execute the test cases parallelly together. Fine. Apart from that, you have a requirement that you want to generate reports. Excel, you have to read the data from say Excel file, then you have to generate the reports. These are HTML reports. You also have to generate logs which will tell you what happened at each and every moment when script was running. You want to put the or embed the screenshots of the errors and all everything in the reports. After the script is executed, you would want to email the reports to everyone. Fine. So it's not a single thing that you just have to write the code. There are many other things involved. So what we do is that we use a centralized controller in the framework. This centralized controller can be TestNG, this can be JUnit, this can be Cucumber BDD. Okay, it is also there. So there are various tools available. So over here we are studying TestNG right now. If you want to study the other tools, you can refer the pre-recorded videos on qtpselenium.com. You can access them. Now what these tools they do is that they read the data from the Excel file. Okay, the TestNG, what it will do, it will read the data, it will call the test cases in a certain order. Okay, and then it will generate the screenshots, it will help you email the reports and all everything. Okay, if you talk about Selenium, then Selenium is only this much. In this green box, the test cases will be written in Selenium. Selenium commands, as far as we have studied right now, they will only help you to interact with the browser. Okay, they won't help you to generate reports and read data and all everything. Okay, so that is why we use TestNG. Okay, so the first thing is you need to install TestNG inside Eclipse as a plugin. Fine. For that you have to go to Google and type TestNG Eclipse and you go to the URL which you get over here and then go to this link, install the plugin. Right, and after after you go to this URL you will have this thing over here and you have to install the Eclipse plugin. What you want to do, you need to do is that this is the URL. You copy this URL. I'll give you this URL on the WebEx chat. Okay. Also, I will give you the URL on the Skype group. Okay. So over here, what you do is that you take this URL, go to help, install new software inside Eclipse, right, and you paste the URL. Okay, hit the enter button of the keyboard, right, and after you had hit the enter button you will see TestNG option over here. Okay, and then you click on next, it will get installed. You might get a temporary error in between, you can ignore that, and your Eclipse will restart. Okay, I already have it installed. Fine. If you go to Window, Show View, and you go to Other, and under Java, you will see TestNG. So if you see this, that means TestNG is installed successfully on your machine, on your Eclipse. Okay, it's installed as a plugin inside Eclipse. Right. Now, once you have installed it, how do we learn about testng? I'll create a new Java project. Okay. And I will call it testng underscore day 15. Today's day 15, right? Okay, right. Now let us study about testng, how it helps us to read data, to actually execute the test cases and all everything. How do we build test cases? Testng is not specifically made for Selenium. Okay, it's a unit testing framework. It can be used for other purposes as well. Right, we just integrate it with Selenium. So what I'll do is that under the source folder, I will create a new package. Okay, and call that package as, say, test cases. Package is like a folder inside folder. So under the source folder we have the test cases folder. So inside it I'll save the test cases. For example, I'll make a test over here, new class. For example, there's a test like send mail test. Okay, in testng you don't have the main function. The main function is in the regular Java programs. In testng we have the annotations. Okay, right. What do you mean by annotations? I'll just tell you. You make annotations like this in testng. You write over here @test public void do send mail test. Okay, so this @test in the annotation, it signifies that this function is a test case. Okay, or say do login. Fine. So if I move my mouse over this error, you'll get the option add the testng library. You'll get the option for JUnit as well. Since we are doing testng, you add the testng library. Okay, and then you import the test. Why am I teaching you testng instead of JUnit? It is because testng is more widely used with Selenium. In most of the companies, testng is used. But even if you want to learn JUnit, it is not a big deal. In module number 8 of the pre-recorded videos, I've shown JUnit. So this is testng do login function. Right. Now if inside it I can print logging in the application. Right. You right click on this and select the option run as testng test. So what will happen is it will run and it will print logging in the application, and you will get that test runs one test was executed, failed, there was 0 failures, 0 skips. That means the test was passed, right? And you will see a tab over here, results of running the class. Right, you click on this, you will get a graphical kind of result. Right, apart from this, okay, if you right click on the project and refresh your project, you will have the test output folder. Inside it you will have index.html. Fine. If you open index.html in your browser, you will have the HTML reports. This HTML report is not very impressive report. Okay, I will tell you how to generate impressive reports like extent reports and all. For example, um, reports like these. These are known as extent reports. Okay, where all the test cases are mentioned over here, and detailed description of every test case is mentioned, that I'm opening the browser, I'm navigating to certain URL and I'm clicking somewhere, typing here. Right, so detailed reports along with screenshots and all you can generate for every test case which you run. So we look at that. Okay, these are the default reports which are generated, not very impressive. Okay, now similarly you can have other test cases as well. For example, @test public void send mail. So inside it you can write over here sending mail, right? There is no main function in test engine. There is no main function. No, these annotations are automatically called by testng. I am running this file. I told you, hold on, I'll tell you. Logging out. I am not running it as a Java program. I am right clicking on it and running it as a testng test. So when I run it as a testng test, it automatically runs the each and every test annotation function. Okay. Whatever functions are there with the annotation test will be called automatically by testng. So you right click on it, run as testng test. So you will have total test runs 3 over here. You see that? But the order, the order will be different out here. Okay. It is saying logging in the application, logging out and then sending mail. Okay. Don't think that, is anybody asking any question? Don't think that the order will remain same. Okay, right? The order, you cannot say that the tests which are written first will be executed first. You can see that logging out is printing first and then sending mail, which is actually incorrect. I have to log into the application, send the mail and then log out. But log out is getting executed before sending the mail. So you have to prioritize the test cases in testng. If you are writing the test cases in a single Java file, you can write over here priority equals to 1. That means that this has to be executed first, then this, and then this. Okay, so now testng, what it does is that when it reads the file, it reads all the 3 testng test annotations. So it will call the annotation with priority 1 first, then this, and then this. Okay, so when you run it, it will print, you see that, logging in, sending mail, and then logging out. So you will see this printed, and if you refresh your project, you will have new set of reports generated for all the 3 uh, tests. So if I refresh the reports, you see that these are the 3 tests. Okay, but not so good reports. We will study how to make better reports. Okay, so this is how you can prioritize the test cases. Now once you prioritize the test cases, you have to say do the validations and all everything. Okay, right. So like what is testing? In testing we compare 2 values, expected value and the actual value. Okay, and then you mark the test pass or fail. Right. So to do the comparisons, to do the validations, we have got assertions. Okay, there is a class known as assert. This class is there inside testng, and all the functions inside this class are static. Okay, so you can write say assert dot assert equals, right? This class is used for validation. You supply the actual and expected value, right? Suppose an actual value I write Selenium, and in expected value I write say Selenium. The actual value, okay, in assert equals, you have got the actual parameter. The actual value will be read from the application using Selenium. The expected value you can read from the properties file or an Excel file. For example, the title of the page. So driver.getTitle will give you the actual title, and the expected title you can keep it in some Excel file and read it, and you can put it inside this function. So if you run this now, it will run fine. Okay, 3 tests will pass, but if I give actual and expected different, right, and if I run this, then automatically you will get one failure. Okay, and if you look at the results of running the class, you will see do login. Okay, showing a failure. Alright, so assert.assert equals, what it does is that it helps you to compare two values expected and actual, and if they don't match, it will fail the test case. Automatically it will fail, and you'll get it in the reports as well that the test has failed. There is one more assertion, assert dot um, assert true. What is this? It takes a condition and a message. Suppose I give a condition like 3 greater than 2, and this message is nothing but your error message. Fine. So if this condition evaluates to true, then the assertion will pass, but if it evaluates to false, then whatever error message you write over here, it will be thrown in the reports. How this is used, I will tell you. Just be with me. So if I run it in this condition, 3 greater than 2 is true. So if I run it, everything will pass. There is no failure. Okay. But if I give a condition like 3 greater than 12, which is not true, it is false. So when I run this code, so you will get a failure. In the report also, you will see the failure. Okay, right. Now, how this is used? Remember, we had seen a function is element present. Inside this, you can pass the XPath of the element. Okay, you can call this function. If this function returns you true, that means the element is present, it will pass. Otherwise, if it returns you false, you can throw the error message that element is not found in the application or something like that, or is element displayed. So you can put some validation over here, some condition. If that condition is false, you can throw the error message. Okay, so these are the two assert functions which are used a lot. Another one is there. Okay, sometimes you know that your test has failed. You have reached a line, or you have reached a condition in your program where you are very sure that your test case has failed. Then you can directly use the command assert.fail with some error message. So whatever, this will directly fail the test. Okay, whatever error message you specify out here will be thrown. Okay, and if you run the test, it will fail the test, and in the reports you will see the failure exception. Error message is also coming up over here. Okay, so I hope you understood me very clearly that what has to be done, fine, and how it has to be done. So there are three functions: assert equals, assert true, and fail. Fine. Now the next thing is that how do we, yeah, this one, sometimes you are very sure that you have reached a point where you need to fail the test case. There is no validation required. You know that you know that the test has failed. For example, you are trying to log in, but you check the presence of, say, the logout button, and you don't get it. That means you have not logged in and you want to fail the test. So you directly write assert.fail and you can fail the test. Okay, so this is also used at times. So all these three assertion functions will be used. Okay, right. Now if you talk practically, if I am failing my login, suppose I write assert.fail over here, my Login test is failing, that means I am not able to log in, suppose. Okay. Then the other two tests should not get executed. They are getting executed, but the other two ones should not get executed if this one is failing. That means our test cases are dependent on each other. Okay. So if you want to introduce dependencies between the test cases, you can write over here, okay, that this is the test case, right, with priority equals to 2, and it depends on methods. You can give the test case name do login. That means this test is dependent on the login test. If the login test is failed or it is skipped or whatever it is, it will not execute. And similarly logout as well, it also is dependent on do login. If you want to make logout dependent on send mail as well, you can do that. You can put a comma and you can put the send mail over here. So I am saying that logout is dependent on both login as well as send mail. Any one of them is failed, this will be skipped. So now if I run my code, you will see that the output, both of them are marked as yellow. Yellow means that they have skipped. They have not executed. So testng has, yeah, because once you right click and run it on as a testng test, next time when you run it, it will that default run as testng test. Okay. So it skips both the test cases. Right. So you can introduce dependency between the tests as well. So till now what I have shown you, I have built 3 tests, dummy tests, executed them, generated some default HTML reports. Then I told you how you can prioritize them. Then I told you how you can introduce introduce assertions. Assertions are used to do validations. Then I told you can also introduce dependency between the test cases. Okay, that this test is dependent on this or something like that. If you want to skip a test case, if you don't want to execute it, you want to skip it deliberately. Okay, to skip a test, right, you can also write throw new skip exception. So if you want to skip the test, you can throw a new skip exception. Skip exception will, you're deliberately throwing an exception, it will skip the login test. Sometimes when you are running in batch, you are running 500 test cases and you don't want to execute all the 500, you want to execute only say 400 and you want to skip 100. So we keep the information in the Excel file that which all test cases have to be skipped, and correspondingly in the code we throw the skip exception. If I run this, you will see that in the output the login test gets skipped because just a minute. This is because just a minute, yeah. The just a minute, guys, my mouse, yeah. This is because the login test had been skipped, so the other two test cases also got skipped. Okay, right. So that's how it works. Fine. Now moving ahead, okay, moving ahead, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. Yeah, if you create a new class out here, right, and do login send mail. Now let me talk about another concept. Like this was about passing, failing, skipping, right, how to build tests and all. So you can make different Java files having different test cases as well. Okay, and you can also use different annotations in TestNG. Let me talk about different annotations right now. Okay, in TestNG there are different types of annotations, right? For example, there is an annotation known as @before test. Okay, public void, I'll just write as before test only the function name, right, and import before test from here. Okay, so public void before test is one function. Okay, and you can print over here system.out.println before executing test. Then another function after test. Okay, you can write public void after test system.out.println after executing test. So as the name suggests, these annotations, they are executed before and after running the test cases. Okay, if I am running my code, hold on. If I am running my code, you will see that before executing the test is printed, then all the three tests are executed, then after executing test is printed. Okay, so the portion in between is from the test cases. Suppose you want to do something before all the test cases. For example, you want to open a browser or you want to connect to a database, right? Whatever is the thing, you want to do some initializations, you can do that before running each test, and after running each test you can also do something, right? It is required at times. Just now for your information, just keep it in your mind, right? Similarly, you have got @before method. Okay, public void, I'll write before method. Okay, you can simply print over here. I'll just print system.out.println. I'm sorry for that noise. System.out.println um, before method and @after method, right? Okay, so when you run this, you will see in the output before method and after method it is executed before and after executing each and every test, while the before test and after test annotations are just executed once, but before method and after method are executed before and after executing each and every test. So there's a difference out here. Okay, in the framework generally we use before method and after method because we want to run every test separately. Generally we do use this. Okay, why do we use this? How do we use this? Okay, that will come in coming classes, but understand the concept right now, that what before method and after method it does, and before test and after test. Fine? Okay, right? Now moving ahead, if you um, create a new class over here, say login test. Okay, this is the login test class. Suppose I write the function @test public void do login inside it. Okay, right, import the test. If I run it, it will run single time. That is fine. Total test runs are 1. But what if I want to run one test with multiple sets of data, with multiple usernames, passwords and all? So how will you do that? For that you will have to use @data provider annotation. Okay, public object get data. You'll have to use the data provider annotation. Fine. You move your mouse over this, import the data provider, right? And this data provider will be imported. Okay, right. And then after that, uh, how will this data provider work? What is data provider? Okay, right. So what you will do is that you will have to make a two-dimensional object array over here. Okay, in two-dimensional object array, what happens is that you have got something like this: certain rows and certain columns. Okay, the number of rows are equal to number of times you want to run the test. Okay, and number of columns are equal to number of parameters in your test. For example, username, password, email. So they are number of parameters. So every row holds the data for the execution. Okay, these are cells. This is 0 comma 0. I hope you know these things. This is 1 comma 1. This is 1 comma 2, like this. So what you do is that you make a two-dimensional object array, right? And with say 3 rows and 2 columns, right? Okay, so that means I want to run the test 3 times, and every time I run it, I will have 2 set of data parameters with me. Okay, so you write over here data 0 0 is say username 1, data 0 1 is password 1. Okay, so this is my first row. Okay, then you put the data inside the second row. Okay, this will be my second row. You have to write 1, say username 2, password 2. So there are 2 parameters in every row. Okay, then you put the data in the third row, 3, password 3. Okay, and you return the data array. So what will happen is that, okay, @test, and you will write over here that the data provider for this is get data. Fine. So this get data function will supply the data to the test case. Okay, right? This means that the get data function will supply the data to the test case. This is linked with the data provider. Okay, and another important thing is The number of input parameters in the test should be equal to number of columns which you specify. You have specified two parameters, right? So you will have to write string username and string password over here. Now nothing else has to be done. TestNG will automatically come to know when you run this test, this will automatically run 3 times with different sets of data. You just have to keep the configurations correct. Make sure number of input parameters in the function are same as number of columns, and you have specified the right number of rows and columns in the data. So later on we'll read this data from the Excel file as well, but this is how you execute it. Okay, right. So there are many other things to TestNG as well. For example, batch running, better report generation, and all that stuff. We'll actually look at that when we do the frameworks. Okay, so this is the bare minimum you should actually know to start off with the framework. Okay,